Imagine a world where the night never ends. Imagine a species shivering in the permanent dark, forever trapped in a cycle of raw survival. We tend to think of fire as a convenience. It is not. It is the single most important technology in the history of the human race. If our ancestors never harnessed that first flickering flame, you wouldn't be watching this right now. In fact, you wouldn't exist at all. To understand why, we have to travel back about 2 million years to the era of Homo erectus. Our ancestors were physically unimpressive. We were smaller, slower, and weaker than the predators surrounding us. Without fire, we were strictly bound by the limitations of our biology. The first major problem is digestion. Raw meat is incredibly difficult to break down. It requires massive energy to chew and process. Because of this, early hominids needed massive guts to extract enough nutrients to survive. That biological demand came with a steep price tag, a smaller brain. Digestion is metabolically expensive. You can have a big, hungry gut, or you can have a big, hungry brain, but you cannot easily afford both. Fire changed the math. Cooking food acts as a form of external digestion. It breaks down tough fibers and denatures proteins before they even hit your stomach. Suddenly, we didn't need the massive, energy-sapping digestive tracts of our primate cousins. That surplus energy was diverted directly to our skulls. Over hundreds of thousands of years, our brains grew significantly larger. Without fire, there is no high-calorie cooked diet. Without that diet, human encephalization, the growth of the human brain, hits a hard, permanent ceiling. We would likely have remained intelligent apes, but never the cognitive giants we became. Then, there is the issue of protection. The African savanna is a terrifying place at night. Predators like saber-toothed cats and giant hyenas dominated the landscape under the moon. Without fire, we were defenseless after sunset. We would have spent our entire evolutionary history hiding in trees or huddling in dark, damp caves. We were essentially living on a timer, scurrying for cover before the sun dipped below the horizon. Fire gave us the gift of the nocturnal window. It allowed us to sit around a perimeter, safe from the beasts of the night. It turned us from the hunted into the campers. This safety fostered the very first human communities. When you can gather safely at night, you talk, you share information. You build social cohesion. Fire is the literal campfire around which language, storytelling, and complex culture were born. Without fire, we lack the social architecture that allowed us to cooperate on a grand scale. We would have stayed in smaller, isolated groups, wandering the land, always fearful, always silent. Consider the spread of our species. Humans are a tropical ape. We were built for the warmth of the African equator. Without fire, the migration out of Africa into colder climates like Europe and Asia becomes a death sentence. The Ice Age was not a hurdle for humans, it was a playground. We thrived in sub-zero temperatures because we brought the tropics with us in the form of portable hearths. Without fire, the entire northern hemisphere remains a human-free zone, a vast frozen wilderness untouched by our footprint. Beyond survival, look at the progression of civilization. Almost every major leap in our history is tied to thermal energy. The Bronze Age began around 3300 BCE because humans figured out how to use fire to smelt copper and tin. The Iron Age followed because we mastered the furnace. Every metal tool, every glass window, and every steam engine that sparked the Industrial Revolution relies on our fundamental mastery of combustion. If fire remains a terrifying, uncontrollable force of nature, we stay stuck in the Stone Age. We aren't just talking about a lack of computers or electricity. We are talking about the absence of agriculture as we know it. We wouldn't have cleared forests for farming. We wouldn't have treated pottery or stored grain. We would be a localized, shivering species, forever bounded by the climate and the raw state of our food. We would have remained a footnote in the history of the planet, just another primate species that flourished briefly and then vanished, unable to adapt to a changing climate or compete with the more efficient hunters of the wild. So, consider the flame of a single match. It seems tiny, it seems trivial, but that flicker represents the entire trajectory of the human story. We are a species defined by what we learned to burn. We ate the fire, and it changed our biology. We guarded the fire, and it changed our society. We mastered the fire, and it gave us the world. If we had never found that first spark, we would not be the masters of Earth. We would simply be another part of the darkness, waiting for a dawn that would never quite wake us up. Was the price of our progress, the environmental cost and the weaponization of heat, worth the ascent from the shadows? Or did we trade our natural innocence for a future that was always destined to burn out?